This practice we've designed as a way to bring more tranquility into your day, into your life. So much of the time, when we're not as aware as we could be, we're struggling. There's a conflict between you and someone else, between you and the clock, between you and your own mind. And through our yoga practice, we can kind of stop that cycle through mindfulness and allowing the breath to preside over our practice, so that there's a synchronicity between movement and breath, and so that the mind can rest in that place of equanimity. So we hope that this practice will help to kind of induce that for you as a way of being very, very mindful, slow in your movements, and equanimous in your mind. So for this practice, we start in a seated position, as Jen is showing you now. And you can have the eyes open or closed, but just bring your awareness internal. And just notice the body and begin to deepen the breath. So what I would ask is that you begin to just scan the body in a very gentle way, in a witnessing way, not in a judgmental or dogmatic way. Just begin to notice places that you might be holding tension, that there is that struggle, that conflict, and then just invite the breath and the awareness that rides the breath to move there. Krishnamurti says that giving something one's attention is the ultimate act of love. And when there's love, there is no conflict. So be attentive to the places that need attention. Provide that loving presence. So again, just notice any places. Invite that tension to release. You can't force it. And one place that we're often very, very tense, and it sort of feels natural and normal for us, is in the whole pelvis, because we habitually are in work on this plane of movement in seated position. So we're going to kind of juice that place up and get rid of some of the clogged up feeling in that area, simply by, if you're sitting up on a lift, you're going to come off of the lift. And this is something that I call mortar and pestle pose. So Jen's sitting in a cross-legged seat, and her hands are on her thighs, and she's just beginning to spin the torso, spin the spine around the stable legs and the floor of the pelvis. So again, this idea of the mortar and pestle, kind of grinding up these hardened lumps of things into a powder. This is what we're doing with the tension in our lower bodies. And she's inhaling as she arcs forward and exhaling as she arcs back. You may imagine that the shoulders or the crown of the head are drawing a big circle on the ceiling. And the legs stay as stable as possible, and you're moving the torso relative to the legs. And then we'll take the torso in the other direction. Inhaling forward, exhaling backwards. Enjoying the sensation of increased freedom in the hip joints, and enjoying the feeling of the breath moving in front and in back, and the breath in 3 dimensions, top to bottom, side to side, and front to back. One more round. Good, and then pause and center and just notice how much freer your breath is and how your mind can just drop in already. Good. I'm going to switch positions to stand on the knees. Now, if you've got, tender knees, you're going to put a little more cushioning underneath. Make sure that your kneecaps are forward of the ends of your shin bones. So you just move your patellas forward. And we'll take some dynamic movement here. So she stands on the knees with the shins parallel and the feet actively tracking back behind her. The inhale brings the arms up. And then with the kind of a movement of the pelvic belly in towards the spine, she fans the arms open and down, comes into a nice forward fold, and then stands back up on the knees. And remember, What we're trying to go for here is a smooth breath, the exhalation may be a little longer than inhale, and a mindfulness of the breath and the movement truly tracking each other. There's a beautiful marriage there. So there's always perfect. There's always perfect. It's called purna, right? Completion, completeness. Not so concerned with form as we are with that dance, that marriage between breath and movement. How about one more round, Jen? Lift the ribs up off of the waist. Exhale, hollow that belly back towards the spine and fold. One more time. Nice. And bring the hands forward. Lean the weight onto your hands, and we're going to come up to standing. So Tadasana, the feet a few inches apart. You may want to look down, make sure your feet are nice and spread. And then the hand's just going to come to the back of the upper leg, sort of just below what I call the pudge line. The spine stays nice and long. The head is sort of tilted forward ever so slightly, so the chin drops. Keep the brain energy soft, and the knees are soft as you fold forward. So she's going to slide her hands down the backs of the legs, keep the collarbones open and broad, complete the exhale, and then simply slide the hands back up. So bringing awareness to the movement, bring awareness to breath. Do this twice more. Remember to allow the breath to complete itself before you move into the next stage of movement in the posture. Good. One more forward fold. Wake up that back body. Good. And then come back up. So take a chair pose variation, Utkatasana or powerful pose, sometimes called awkward pose. The arms are in goalpost shape or saguaro cactus arms. So she's going to come into the pose, wait for the breath to come around to exhale, and then as she exhales, keeping the knees bent, she folds over. Once the ribs hit the thigh, the arms extend gently. Complete exhale. Arms come back up into goal pose. We're sort of opening the space around the thoracic rim right here. Exhale and fold. And imagine rather than leading from the movement here, we're leading from here. How about one more round? Exhaling. Exhale longer than inhale. You see it takes her longer to come down than it does to come up. This creates that calmness. Let's stay there for a breath or two and just enjoy. Even in the midst of challenge, can you still just let that struggle be superseded by the following of that beautiful, intelligent breath? Good. You can release the arms, come all the way up to stand. And let's have the right leg come back behind you. So the hips stay square with the front edge of your mat. You've heard that before. And we're going to move between two postures, warrior one to sort of a Parsvakonasana or pyramid stance. So as you move into warrior one, the arms reach. So the front knee bends and it moves right over the ankle. As you exhale, front leg extends, spine lifts up, and hands come to Namaskara Mudra. Second time, we bend into that front knee, keep the back leg rooting, arms reach out as though you're grabbing prana, life force, and then exhale, draw it in towards the core of your being. Inhale, arms reach. We come into the pose. Exhale. And really feel as though you're collecting, gathering peaceful yet powerful energy. Good. Now that we've gathered some of that, we move into a bit more challenge. Take your hands back just onto let them rest on your sacrum like this. And you see here Jen's collarbones are nice and broad and her stance is nice and tall. She begins to shift the weight onto her forward foot and move into a very mild warrior three. Three. So she's finding the place where she can still breathe and not be overly conflicted in the pose. So for you, it might be your spine might be a little taller, your leg might be a little lower. Wherever it is that you feel challenged and yet you can find that peaceful place where the mind is dissolving a little bit. Good. Warrior three. So she's going for it. Beautiful. And then inhale, begin to bend that front knee, step back, exhale. And we'll switch sides. So remember, even as we're in sort of our peak posture, more challenging postures, exhale's a little longer than inhale. And we take that flowing warrior one, arms reach. Exhale, draw the energy back in. It's always a conversation. Inhale. And we exhale. Good. So the action in and out of the postures can be fairly strong, but only if the breath is the boss. Well done. All right, so hands come back to the low back. Set yourself up. As we move to warrior three, we're not leading from the chin. It's almost just like, let's just get that idea of the tilt of the pelvis first. Ground through that standing leg. Really, get to know what your foundation is and then use it. And the pose becomes one of evenness of effort. Everything's spread throughout the body. How about just one more breath there, Jem? And we step back. She lands like dust. It's beautiful. Good. And now we'll take a neutral sort of resting pose, which is Malasana. So Jen's going to show you a wide-legged variation. And for some of you, your heels won't touch the ground, and that doesn't really matter. Just have your hands on the floor to support you. I'm going to take a closed foot variation here. So wherever along this spectrum you are, it's perfectly acceptable. Remember what our rule is for this practice. You're not holding your breath. Couple rounds of breath. Feel that rootedness of the pelvis as you move down, and then that lightness as we lift the spine up and out of the rooted pelvis. How about one more breath? Good. Then hands come down to the floor. Actually, Jen, you're going to spin, and we come into Uttanasana, standing forward fold. And here you may find you're warmed up enough to get the legs a little bit straighter and enjoy that sense of releasing burden in this forward fold. Whatever's weighing you down, just rolling off of your shoulders, the breath flowing deep and even. And from here, we'll move to a lunge. So we're going to move from high to low lunge, what I call high. This would be a high lunge where the knee is off the ground. And as she exhales, the knee comes down. Fingertips are on the floor or on blocks. Spine is long. Brain is quiet. Exhale. Yeah. One more time. Nice. Now you can choose whether your knee is down or up for this next variation, but what we're going to do is just take a mild twist here. So she begins to spin the torso, and the wrist or the lower forearm is to the outside. You don't automatically have to get the elbow to the outside of the leg like you might hear in a lot of classes. Work to your capacity, and you're going to know what that is, because if you start to struggle with that breath, you need to back up a little bit. Long spine. Good. And then if we want to add a little more oomph, we can reach back with that back arm, creating more twist in the upper torso. And then Jen will show you that you can get a little further, a little deeper into the posture, and the twist resides a little more towards that core. How about one more breath there? Tongue is relaxed, eyes are soft, brain is quiet. Nice. And then we'll slowly go ahead and release. Coming back through standing forward bend as we move to the second side. Well done. So here in this sort of flow between these two postures, we want to have a clear idea that it's the breath that's leading, it's not the pose, you're not going for that active stretch necessarily. It's about how can I be absolutely present. How about one more time? And exhale. And she's going to now take that mild twist to the second side. And see if you have the patience to follow the trajectory that she's taking here. Sort of notice every stage of this twist. Good. Now she begins to maybe activate the back arm. And notice as she does that, this shoulder blade, this one can come forward a little bit. So we're twisting the shoulder girdle in opposition to the hips. And then she may want to slide that elbow down more towards the outside of her leg. And enjoy the sensation. And there's a bit of a challenge right here to the diaphragm. You're going to breathe into that space without being aggressive. Have fun with it. One more breath. And you can even look over your back hand if you want. And then we'll release. Coming back up to stand in Tadasana. And we'll bring the hands back behind us in a gentle clasp. So no need to put a death grip on the knuckles, gentle clasp. And the elbows are going to move sort of towards each other, kind of bring the shoulder blades together, expanding the chest, and then she's going to fold over. So the knees are soft, heels are grounded. She's finding that perfect foundation now that she's got it in the legs. She can begin to move that breath, that awareness up into the arms. Elbows coming towards each other. Maybe drawing the shoulders towards the ears a little bit. Opening up this space here in the body, right through here. Head's relaxed. And the breath is really, there's a nice vortex of breath right up between the shoulder blades here. It's going to come in handy for our next pose. Good, let's bend the elbows a little bit more. See if you can slide your hands up your back a little more. There it is. Relax your face. Breath is flowing. And then she'll go ahead and, or you also, will come out of the pose. We'll move to a mild inversion, Viparita Karani, or inverted action pose. And then I'd love this for it to be supported for you. So we're going to use 2 blocks right underneath the pelvis. So we come to a bridge pose. And the block placement is right at the sacrum, right here. So not at the low back necessarily, right at the sacrum. And then she grounds those shoulder blades into the ribs, upper arm bones into the mat. And then one leg at a time, we come to this inverted action. Some would say this is a shoulder stand variation. Good. And the chest is open and broad. And this inversion really helps to quiet the brain. So let your gaze be at the tip of your own toes, unwavering. And let your mind drop in to feel the flow of the breath and the relaxation of having your head on the floor. So the parasympathetic nervous system is housed, the rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system housed in the back of the neck, or in the base of the head, and in the place just in front of the sacrum. So these 2 places are supported here. Very, very calming pose. Gaze is steady, and we'll stay here for just another breath or 2, please. Good. To release, we'll take the legs down. Make sure your feet are on the floor. Lift the hips up. Get your blocks out of the way. I will move them for you. And then she's just going to raise one arm and roll over onto the tummy. So again, just like we did in Warrior 3, hands are resting on the low back. And we'll take a half locust variation, Ardha Shalabhasana. The arm sweeps forward of the ear. The opposite leg lifts. The inhale comes, the exhale. Yeah, so we're sweeping the arm. This is our inhale, and this is our exhale. And the head can turn, releasing tension from the neck, counterposing that inversion that we just did. How about one more round? Opposite arm to leg here. And again, not going for the biggest range of motion, but going for that beautiful conversation between breath and movement. One more round. Exhale a little longer than inhale if you can manage that. And then we just rest. Just rest there for a breath or two. It's always good to add rests into your practice so that you can notice the effects of what you're doing. Okay. So go ahead, we'll press back up through child's pose maybe. And then turn the legs to one side, come onto your seat, please. Legs extended out in front of you. So she's going to bend one knee and leave the foot on the floor. We're going to take a sort of a half or even a quarter boat pose, Navasana. So you can leave this knee bent. You see that her sacrum is lifted off the floor. Her spine is nice and long. And she's going to alternate legs. Now, if you want to go for a little firmer version or more advanced version, you could straighten that leg if you'd like and sort of, And if this is too much for you, you're just holding on to the backs of the knees. So let's stay here for a breath or two, wherever it works for you. Good. Again, mindful of where your breath is going. How is it flowing? So the breath, that's the meter. That's the gauge. How are you being? How are you doing? Always, the breath always has the answer. And let's go ahead and hug. Great. So the legs will extend one more time. Just shake the knees out if you'd like. And we'll bend the left knee. So the foot will come a few inches away from the inner right thigh. And you're going to try to get your ankle as close to right underneath your knee as you can. For some, it's not really doable given your anatomy. So it's almost like you could stand up on your left foot right now if you had to. So we're going to move to Marichyasana, left hand back behind you, and spinning from the space below the navel. From below the navel, be very clear about that. We begin to turn the torso. Good. And hug the knee. This is about as far as you need to go in this practice. If you feel the need to go deeper, go right ahead. But this is a good place for you to play with that breath. And then the gaze can continue the twist up into the cervical spine as you gaze over your left shoulder. Relax the tongue, soften your eyes. And feel the breath in all three dimensions here. Top to bottom, front to back, side to side. Go ahead and release. We'll go to the second side. So she finds that foundation, makes sure that her foot is in the right placement, spine is nice and tall, and then you begin the twist. Nice. So where do you feel the breath not being received? That's where you want to go. Invite that space to open. Invite your mind there. Good. So maybe a little longer with your next inhale in terms of the length of the spine, and then a little deeper with your next exhale, deepen the twist. Exhale a little longer than inhale. And we'll slowly release again. And now that knee is just going to drop out. You want to go? Yeah. That knee is just going to drop open to the side. And for some of you, it's going to feel much more comfortable if you sit up on a blanket or on a lift. Jen, you want to do it? So it just goes right underneath the sitting bones, helps you to tilt your pelvis forward. And we're going to take Janu Shirshasana, which is a tongue twister sometimes. Head of the knee pose. So we know this to be a forward fold and a hip opener. I like to have the strap right on the ankle so that you can really engage the whole leg bone chain. So rather than just folding, can we show the alternative? So rather than just trying to drag your head down towards your knee with a rounded spine, we're going to keep the spine extended. That's why we're using the strap. And then fold from the hips. So it's like your collarbones are going to want to sail up and over your toes. Well, let's have the chin slightly drop towards Jalandhar or Bandha so that the brain stays quiet. And the gaze is over your front toes. It's always nice when you're one of the aims of your practice is to calm your mind down, to calm your vision down. A lot of our brain real estate is given over to our visual cortex. So it's a very, very active place. So quieting that gaze will quiet the mind. How about one more breath? And you can see as I've been talking and talking and talking, Jen has gotten deeper and deeper and deeper into the pose. So take time. Pay attention. Well, let's go to the second side. So the knee comes up before she extends. It's a good idea for you guys too. And again, the strap, if you can, right at the heel bone so you can track that bone chain right up into the hip. And then she waits for her inhale to come. She extends and then exhale. We take the top of the sacrum, lift it up, and then draw it over towards the thigh. The gaze calmly, gently over the forward toes, the collarbones sailing in the same direction. So our tendency might want to be to crank and yank, to open those hamstrings. Not the purpose of this practice. We're still doing a nice amount of work, but we're hugging it out. We're not duking it out in this practice. Good. So here again, where aren't you receiving the breath? Where isn't this happening for you? That's where you want to move your gentle, kind, loving awareness. Good. And she goes deeper and deeper. And the breath gets more and more flowing. Ease and effort balancing. One more exhale. Great. And then come back up. So remember, the knee comes upright just to protect it, comes upright and then extends. And we'll just even everything up. And no need to reach the hands toward the feet here as we just gently move into a variation of Paschimottanasana, seated, forward, bend. Here you can let your head hang just a little bit. Allow your eyes to close and feel like you could breathe space into the back body. Let the breath rise the spine like you were a dolphin rising up out of the waves. And then exhale, maybe go a little deeper, but don't push. Good. About one more breath there, and the knees don't need to be straight. They can be a little bit soft. Even here, there might be a conflict developing, and you're going to use that peaceful presence of breath and quiet mind to resolve that conflict. So now we'll come onto our backs. And just allow the knees to draw up, and then open them up. The soles of the feet coming together in Supta Baddha Konasana. And the low back is nice and long, so we're not arching the back here at all. If this is uncomfortable for you, we can place blocks underneath the outer thighs. You still have a nice opening there in the pelvic floor and in the inner thighs, yet there's no strain. And then Jen has her hand on her belly. I'd like you to do the same. And just feel the breath flowing. So here, we're going to just notice the breath. Just feel it flowing. I mentioned a few times this idea of 3 dimensions of breath: top to bottom, side to side, front to back. Exhale longer than inhale. So again, go inside, go internal, and notice the effect of the breath, the structure of the breath, and allow your mind to dissolve into that. So if your breath is, 4 or 5 counts on the inhale, see if you can begin to lengthen the exhale relative to inhale. So maybe even it's twice as long as inhale. So if your in-breath is 4, your out-breath moving towards a count of 8. So the inhale a receiving, the exhale a letting go. In these last 3 rounds of breath, we've connected with ourselves through the practice. Let's connect with everything else, with the silent sound of Om on your exhale. So we inhale, we fill. Exhale silently the sound Om. And that's the sound, the vibration that contains everything else. Ultimate connection, the ultimate creation. Just tuning our vibrations to that primordial knowingness. About 1 more round. Inhale. Great. So stay here if you'd like to just savor this place. Stay here for as long as you like, as long as you can. But for us, Jen's going to take her feet to the floor, her knees together, rolling off to a side. And just come to a seat. Notice again, maybe take a different view of the landscape of your body, of the tension in your body, of the relationship between breath, movement, and mind. And enjoy that newfound presence, that sense of peace, tranquility, of connection, of resolution. Thank you. Namaste.